Cool. So, hey everyone, thanks for watching our video today. I'm here with my friend Mohammed, who I met in London when I
Woo!
spoke at the Goat Agency. So, good to have you on the call today, Mohammed. How are you?
I'm good, thanks. Nice to have you.
And obviously, when we met, I was giving a sort of talk about all the stuff to do with inclusion, accessibility, really trying to raise awareness. It's been my big life's mission now to talk about the barriers that exclude disabled people, but the opportunities really that are there for particularly businesses if they are inclusive. Obviously, the big thing I bang on about is this infamous purple pound, which we were just saying, weren't we, Mohammed? It's sort of different research spans a few different figures. But what were you saying the latest figure is now?
274 billion, and that's
Billion, right? I mean,
15% of UK's discretionary spend. That's
yeah,
a lot of money.
it's a lot of cash. It's a lot of cash. And, as a disabled person myself, I see the number of products and services and brands that I can't use because I'm a wheelchair user. So, like, for example, I don't really use a laptop very much. I'm more capable and able on my smartphone. So if a website isn't mobile ready, then it's going to make it a pretty clunky thing. I'm probably going to switch to the competition. So
Sure.
there's a whole lot of factors around inclusion for businesses, but we're
Yeah.
going to talk about web accessibility today, Mohammed.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. Another interesting figure they spoke about at the London Accessibility Meetup
Yeah.
was 98% of the world's most frequently visited websites uh, we did not even conform to the minimum accessibility web standards.
Wow.
98%.
That's
Um,
crazy.
yeah, that's huge, huge number.
Well, listen, Mohammed. So let's get stuck in. There's so much I want to ask you about you and about the world of web accessibility. But just to get us really into it, give us a bit of a background to you as well, man. Like what have you been up to, and what brought you to caring and wanting to help about web accessibility?
Well, I worked in 15 years in construction slash civil engineering, the last 10 years being local authority. And I was a champion for accessibility provisions inside the highway network at the local authority I worked on. So I worked on kind of like dropped curbs for accessibility for mobility scooters into someone's house, like a car crossover.
Mm-hmm.
I used to work on tactile provisions and other aspects of conforming to the Equality Act. And so we would have even letter writing. Uh, we would make sure that we were bringing every new scheme we did it to not to do it in conformance with the Equality Act 2010. And so yeah, it was that. And then when I became a web developer a year ago, I just found that I could really bring and relate that user base I used to work with quite a lot into the web development world because I could relate to the user base. You
Yeah.
know, that was the key
It's
thing.
barriers, isn't it? Whether it's a barrier like not having a drop curb when you're in a wheelchair, like myself, or a barrier like we'll get into some more in a minute. But digitally, in the end, it's about knowing those difficulties and then finding the solutions. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean the cool thing was we used to have a qualities officer in our local authority, and we did this like big stunt day for trying to let us see with the eyes. So we hired out mobility scooters one day, and he set us these tasks of go and find out what the price of Coke is in this pub and so forth. And we did that day, and we realized so many things. Like
Mm.
when we look at things, we would take monochrome pictures for our schemes and to have continuity in our routes for the pedestrians when we're building sites. So yeah, we did some cool stuff, but it actually just shows you the world and making something accessible to all makes it more better user experience for customer as well.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's such an interesting one. That there's a very visual a photo I saw sometime that they had like a way into a building with steps and a way with a ramp, and more people that weren't disabled took the ramp. It's
Yes.
crazy. Yeah.
Yes.
So in terms of the digital world and the web accessibility world, can you share a few of the more common things that cause a problem for a disabled consumer, if you like, trying to use a website?
Well, the basics are really ought to be covered anyway, but there is a thing called a semantical model in
Mm-hmm.
HTML. HTML is basically the foremost thing which people interact with. And I'm going to go out controversial and say it's not a programming language as a web developer, but it has a semantical model. So a lot of developers need to understand that if you conform to that semantical model of HTML5, it puts a lot of things in perspective. So it would say, for example, this is an article, this is a subheading in an article, and it just brings that clarity to someone who is using a device per se, and it sort of adds hierarchy to it. What we do as devs is we use divs and so forth, tags that are not semantical. They don't actually say what they are, just to see the page up, and that's one of the first challenges that I promote. But as a business owner, um, what what's more important is the ability to actually test your website is so simple. You just type in online, go to Wave Accessibility Test, copy your business link, paste it in there, and it will give you three sets of flags. You will have the red flags, the amber flags, and the green flags.
So you
If you can,
literally copy your URL for your business website.
that's
And
right.
what was the tool called? The website
It's
tool
called a
called
Wave Accessibility Test.
Wave.
Yes, Wave. So
Wave accessibility test.
and
And then
and
it
there is
tells you
no human beings involved, so you're not calling someone in the middle of 2 a.m. Oh, is my website. It's just an API which
yeah,
anybody can take their business website and paste it
brilliant.
in there, and they
Yeah.
will have three sets of flags. Now the red flags, they need to be tended to urgently, but the,
Mm,
the 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 beauty or the silver lining is the easiest flags to conform to are the red flags for a developer. It's
right.
simply like when you see a picture, can you add an alternative text
Yeah.
to that picture? So somebody who's not able to see the picture, they would know what it is, and so forth. So that's one of the key things in businesses I really wanted to highlight in terms of something that no people will be involved in. Is free of charge.
Mm. There's a lot of misconceptions. Like when I do my work around employing disabled people or around, physical products being accessible or services being inclusive, the misconception is, oh, it's going to cost me a lot when if we make this inclusive for everybody. And very often it isn't. And it sounds like in this instance, it's exactly the same, right?
Yes, but regulations are catching up. So in September of this year, most government websites will have to conform to the minimum accessibility standards. So regulations are catching up
Yeah.
to meet this demand, and I really feel that it's a no-brainer, really. I mean, if you had access, would you kind of leave yourself out of 15% of a country's, it's just such a big figure.
Yeah, exactly. So what other tips and advice can you share on our interview today? I know you were telling me before about the color wheel. Is that something that you work with?
Yes, yes. So an interesting aspect is there is a very simple color wheel which exists online, It's called, uh, yeah, it's just called a color wheel. If you just type that in online, can
Mm-hmm.
you see that?
Yep,
Yeah.
that shows.
So now you can see the contrasting colors. One of the things the wave accessibility test will highlight is, you could have a light text on a light background that's very hard to read.
Yeah.
So using a generic guide like the color wheel, it can assist the businesses in
Mm-hmm.
deciding on their color schemes. It's very
Yeah.
simple. If you choose a yellow, you should have sort of like a pastely purple background, and it just gives you a better contrast if you
Yeah.
were to use use that. Yeah.
And so, like, someone with a visual impairment, clearly that's going to be a really big deal for helping them to consume and read and use a website. But as you said, we both agreed earlier, it's actually going to make it better for everybody because it's just easier for the eye, isn't it? Even when you
Yes.
don't have a disability in that domain.
Yes, and also, for example, if you have a timeout on your website, like you're an event, you can book online or you book in like tickets or so forth. What happens is when you're using alternative devices or a website, it may be the process is slower. So you may gauge a time to be okay. At best, somebody would take 20 minutes to process the next part of the form. However, if you're using assisted technologies, you need to sometimes it's a lot more slower, the feedback and so forth. So if you do have a timeout feature on your website, be
Mm.
sure to be able to have a feature to reset that
Yeah.
in case the user may be taking it. He needs to have the choice to reset the timeout. Otherwise, you'll have people, they're so frustrated because they can't buy the top from Peacock or whatever, or they can't
Mm-hmm.
get the football tickets that they need, or they can't go to the cinema because every time they try to buy anything, they can't. And,
It's frustrating for everyone, isn't it, as well?
yes,
But yeah,
yes.
no,
And
that's
if
a really,
you are of those people who actually starts from day one, um, so I'm gonna name check someone here. I don't know if you would allow me, but in Trustpilot they do the feedback for businesses. They send out
yeah.
HTML emails, and now I've personally seen how that process works. I actually worked on a business, and their Trustpilot email for the feedback. It had no semantical tags. It had no alternative texts. So you were sending out this email thinking it's all well and I'm going to get a lot of feedback from your customers. The, the key aspect with accessibility online that I find is important to highlight to the businesses is if your site is somewhat conformant to the accessibility standards, then the customer will not have a bad experience.
Yeah.
And usually a customer will stay around and you would get something called a brand loyalty.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah. Which, as you know, my background's very marketing and about branding, and so it all connects, right? You've got retention on the website. You've got people. Is it called dwell time when they're on the website longer?
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah. But all of these kind of things, you're including a group that are previously excluded, the 15% of the UK spending power, but you're making it better for everybody else at the same time.
yes, yes. So I'm just gonna ask Martin. This is a very important question to me personally. We're gonna turn the tables, and I'm simply gonna ask this: why is there a Y in your name? You know.
Everybody's been waiting for this question to be asked. You'd have to ask my mum and dad. I've got no idea why.
Okay, okay,
But
cool, cool.
I'll ask him and I'll let you know anyway.
Okay, okay, cool. Well, here are some resources. I'm just going to list them now. So I've done a very simple LinkedIn article, which will be in the description. I have done a very simple blog post following my visit to Accessibility Meetup London,
Awesome.
a group that I'd like to do a shout out for. Very good
Hmm.
group. And then um, I've also done a, yeah, I'll put the link for the airwave accessibility test in the description. So
That's
these are the
brilliant.
3 free resources to
Yeah.
help people get better understanding of accessibility around.
Yeah, that's really kind of you. I'm sure it's going to help a lot of people. And yeah, Mohammed, like, thank you for bringing your knowledge. And I know that you do a lot of freelance work where you're able to help people with some of the other parts of development in general, and particularly around making improvements with accessibility. So I'm sure if anyone needs a bit of an extra hand, they can give you a shout.
Sure.
But yeah, most of all, thank you for your time and your expertise
Yeah.
today, my friend.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not going to do a secret plug. I'm just going to say this, that I actually give free consultation on web
Right.
infrastructure to clients. So the clients can better manage their web development processes. It's not a secret plug
No,
because
no,
I
no.
won't charge for people for it.
Sure.
It's just a case of, because I have that engineering background, because I can relate to that user group, I can better foresee these issues
Yeah.
and just guide people on them, and so forth. But yeah, hey man, Purple Pound, um, you
Big
know,
up the Purple Pound.
big up the Purple Pound, and businesses do not miss out on the Purple Pound, um,
Yeah.
especially due to your website.
And I think, we've seen it more recently that a lot of businesses are just a bit scared around how to embrace disability. So they just don't act. But the brands that are acting are already seeing the benefits to their bottom line. So we're getting to the point that those that don't move are going to miss out. So don't miss out on the party, basically.
Yeah, yeah, great, great.
All right. Nice one. Thanks a lot, Mohammed.
Okay, thank you.